Hello everybody and welcome to a beautiful evening on Lockton Marsh. For those of you that didn't see the video that I made here earlier in the year, go and check out the link above there. That video was the culmination of almost 2 years worth of work in trying to get a single image, and it really does go to show you the struggles that landscape photographers go through in order to get their images. Today, however, it's a little bit different from me. This is more of a tutorial. I keep getting asked about how I make the choices as to which graduated filter that I use. So this short film hopefully will help you in making that decision when you're out in the field yourselves. There's two methods that I use. The first is the more difficult method, and it comes from the days of when I used to use transparency film, and it's using spot metering in the camera and looking at the different portions of the frame to make that decision. The second is the easiest, which is now available to us, and it's using live view and the histogram. But I'm going to show you the filters first and then we'll get into using them. So these are the three filters that I tend to use all the time. You've got a 0.3, a 0.6 and a 0.9. That equates to a 3-stop, a 2-stop and a 1-stop. So basically wherever you put the dark part over the scene, as in this instance, you're reducing the bright parts of the image by 3 stops. Similarly, 2 stops and then 1 stop. You can just see there the difference in the sky as opposed to the areas around it. These are all Lee filters and they're quite expensive to buy. What I will say is that if you're just starting out, now which one is it? If you're just starting out, you can put the 6 and the 3 together to get the 9. So you don't necessarily have to buy the really strong one. It's nice to have, but you don't really need to have it. These, what I use, are all hard edge grads. The difference being is that the transition line is quite severe when you hold it up to the horizon. They do a soft edge grad, but I tend to find that I struggle looking where the transition line is. It's so subtle you can hardly see it. What they say is with these is that if you've got a horizon line that's undulating, you can see the dark line. If I angle that over the horizon there, you can see the difference in the dark areas. So with the 0.9 and the 0.6, it can create problems, but for me, I've never really had so much of a problem that I've warranted buying a second set. So let's get into using them. So the camera's all set up and I'm really happy with the composition. I now need to make that decision as to which filter I need to put on. If you look behind me, you can see that the sky is certainly brighter than the foreground. You look at the grass over here, there's a definite tonal difference between that and the sky, and that's what I'm faced with here, and I need to make that decision. So the old method, which we used to use in the days of film, was using the spot metering system, and what we do is we look for different parts of the scene and make a judgment based on the readings that we get. When I'm shooting landscapes, certainly back in the day, I used to use aperture priority a lot, and that was before we had histograms and we could check the images straight away. So I put the camera on spot metering and I'll point the camera at a portion of the scene that I consider to be mid-tone. Now by mid-tone I mean it's not black, it's not white, it will be what would be considered as being grey. Now I know there's no grey tones in this scene, but if we look at the grass for example, the grass is neither light nor dark. Had it been a lot of dead grass, dying grass that was very, very pale in colour, that would probably be over mid-tone, but if you look at the grass around me, it's quite lush and it's what I would consider to be mid-tone. Similarly, the sky above, certainly when you get higher up in the atmosphere, that blue is a lovely mid-tone. As we get down towards the horizon, it becomes a little bit brighter and the tonal range changes ever so slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera, put it on spot metering, which just takes a meter reading from wherever that spot is, and look at those values. So I'm taking a meter reading from the grass in the foreground, which forms the base to my image, and with that I'm getting a shutter duration at f8 of 40th of a second. When I move the spot meter and look at the sky, I'm getting a shutter duration of 1/60th of a second at f8. So that's 2 stops difference of light, so I need the 0.6 neutral density graduated filter on to balance that exposure. Now the way that that's worked is if you look at 40th of a second and you add a stop, you double it. So you go from 40th to 80th. You then double it again, 80th to 1/60th, and that gives you 2 stops. Apertures and shutter speeds work in doubling and halving. So if you go down, you halve, if you go up, you double. And that's the way you work it out. So I need to put a 0.6 two-stop grad on to make this image work. So I'll go and get one now. Okay, so we've got the grad, but before I pop it in, I'm going to quickly take a shot without it in place so you can see the differences between the two. I've shut the blind at the back so we don't get any light leakage in. The sun's quite low in the sky now, and it will affect the exposure if that's not shut or your hand's not in front of it. I've put the camera back on evaluative meter reading. The reason I've done that is because when this is in place, the metering will look at the scene as a whole, and it will see it as being balanced once that's in the correct position. So I'm going to take that now quickly. 2-second timer, mirror lock up to prevent camera shake, and yes, I can definitely see clipping at the top part of that image, which is telling me that some of that sky is burning out. So let's pop this in quickly and take the second shot. Drop that down, open the blind, look at the transition line, bring it down slowly, about there I'd say. Shut the blind again and take the image. Perfect, absolutely perfect. I'll put those two images on now, and then we'll look at the more modern method of doing the same thing really. Okay, so lastly, let's look at the more modern approach to getting the exposure correct using graduated filters. As we know that the 0.6, the two-stop filter is the correct one for this scene. I'm going to pop the camera on live view. Most modern DSLRs and other cameras have got live view. I've popped the histogram on so you can see it, and if you look at it now, you'll see that at the top, which is the highlights, the white portion of the histogram is clipping at the top of that box, the dark box that it's sat in. As I bring that filter down, you see the transition of the filter as it drops into place, but watch the white portions of the histogram. They now have left the edge of that box, which is telling me that is perfectly exposed. There are no clipping of the highlights. Ordinarily I will check the RGB histogram after the shot's taken, but chances are there's probably not going to be any clipping at all of that image given that histogram that I can see there. And that is really, in a nutshell, how you do it in a more modern way. It's a lot quicker than all this spot metering that we used to have to do back in the day. Those people that are still using large format cameras, you'll see them holding the little pistol grips and they're pointing at the sky, pointing at the foreground, taking those meter readings. Some of us still have to do it, but certainly the modern cameras have got all this built into them now, and it's a lot easier. So that's it for this short tutorial. I hope you found it useful. I've tried my best to simplify it as much as possible, and we've got a reasonably nice image from it to show. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there and say I'll see you all again soon in the next one. Hopefully it will be more of my typical style where we're going out looking for a fantastic shot, hoping to get lucky in the end. So until next time, bye for now.